welcome to another episode of All Things Real Estate. And as always, I am your host, Kyle Seyboth with Century 21. And we always have special guests. Today, guys, we got two guests for you today. We have two very special guests that are working closely with me, partnering with me going forward in a lot of the future business stuff that we're doing as a brand and as a brokerage within Century 21. So without further ado, I would love to introduce my two guests, and I'll let them introduce themselves. My friend to my right.
Thank you, Kyle. Ramon Feliz, Senior Home Loan Consultant with Main Street Home Loans.
So guys, what does that mean? Ramon is a mortgage lender,
Correct.
right? So he's a mortgage lender. He's located here in the greater Providence area.
Correct.
Right? And you do financing for purchases, you do refinancing.
Correct.
Right? So you do pretty much anything that deals with someone looking to buy or refinance a house.
That's correct,
right?
yes.
So multifamily, single families, right? And on your end, just to be clear to our audience, that you guys work with buyers from 1 units to what?
4 units.
1 to 4 units.
1 to 4 units, and we work with first-time home buyers, and we work with investors.
Perfect.
So, you know, we have a really good system of just, it's all about the relationship, really, and helping that person with all their real estate needs.
Perfect. And you guys came from, what was the company before Main Street? What were you guys? You guys were
So
First
previously
Home.
we were with a different company called First Home Mortgage.
First Home.
And then we started Main Street in December of 2018.
Yep.
So we are now coming up on our 2nd year in business, yeah.
Wow, great. So First Home transitioned into Main Street, and now you guys are up and running as a separate entity, which is awesome.
It's one of the few employee-owned mortgage companies of its kind.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And then 2 seats to my right, we have another real estate professional. Sir, what's your name?
Jeffrey Infante. Thank you, Kyle, for inviting me over. I've been in the business for 10 years now and working with buyers and sellers and providing, the home ownership opportunity.
So Jeff, guys, what he does is he's a real estate agent, right? So Jeff's an agent. He helps people buy, he helps people sell their property. And the reason why I wanted to kind of bring you two guys on together is because I'm trying to make a huge push with the help of you guys at the growing population within the Hispanic community. There is, from my opinion, a huge disconnect between the buyers and sellers, just regular buyers and sellers, and then folks within that community that need assistance. And I think we need to be the people to provide that service. So it's important that you and I have decided to partner going forward, and we're working with Ramon on the lending side, right? We're working on the real estate side to help people figure out how to buy a house, how to sell a house, what that process looks like, and then partnering with an equal kind professional on Ramon's end to help them with financing.
Right.
So with you guys, I want to ask you guys a couple questions on that. What do you feel like is the biggest disadvantage that the Hispanic community is getting from our real estate professionals? Where do you think is the biggest hole that we should fill?
I think it's communication. I think is one aspect of it. And then there's the education element of it as well. I think that the Hispanic community is not being properly educated on home ownership, right? They're sort of just, here you go, here's the house, buy it, sign, that's it, right? But what we're looking to do is something completely different, and we're trying to fill in that gap, right? And that is to educate them and also teach them how to continue to invest in future opportunities as well. It's just not, here's the key and that's it, right? Just, all right, here's your key. Now let's take you a step further now, right? We're going to investments opportunities. So I think that it's very important that what we're doing here, it's huge because it's needed, number one. And I think two is it needs to be filled. Like there's that void there that needs to be filled in. And that's why, we're here today. And Ramon is going to be a huge asset to this whole project that we have going on as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. And I think that if you take a step back, number one, real estate is the door, the first door in, your attempt to create generational wealth, right? And I think for most people in this country, we realize that. Once you buy your first property, that opens up a whole new door. It changes the financial fabric of your family. So we know that, we understand that. Culturally, the Hispanic community in this country right now sees the purchase of a home as a means to no longer pay rent and just have a home, right?
Correct.
And in fact, that's part of the reason why I think when it comes to the financing and then just the culture of real estate in this country, most of the time, most of the Hispanic consumer doesn't even ask you what the rate is, and it's more about what's the payment and can I get this home, right? And can I buy this house? Because that's all they look at.
Right.
How much am I gonna pay? And do I like this house? Can I fit my family in here? Because most of the time, it's gonna be multiple family members buying a home together and so on and so forth. However, us, the professionals in this industry, we know that it's a lot more than that. A home is not just, a place where you go to live, it's also a business. And it's bringing that other side and that other element of the transaction to the consumer and setting the expectations, because culturally there is a barrier. In most Hispanic countries, the way real estate works is very different from how it works here. So when you have people that are first generation in this country who have only the experience of where they come from, this is a completely shock to them. The process itself, the paperwork, the intensity, the contracts, the deadlines, the timing, all of that is foreign to them. And most professionals in our industry, I think that we do this so often and so much that it's just second nature to us. However, we don't comprehend that our consumer, it's kind of like telling someone to walk off a cliff and take a 300-foot dive, and they don't really know how to swim. You know what I mean?
That's definitely what it is.
And that's where there is the biggest disconnect and void that I personally see. And I think most of that comes down to what Jeff said, education, but then also setting the right expectations. Because if we set the right expectations, they already want it. They're willing to do whatever it takes to get the home, but they need the guidance, and then they need to be set or help in setting the right expectations.
Yeah, I mean, I found, to me, some of my most memorable clients, or some of the most grateful clients, came from the Hispanic community. They're just so happy to get a house. They listen to what you tell them to, right? So they want to be educated. And I don't want to generalize anything, but I just feel like a lot of times there's not that entitlement feeling. And that's a really fulfilling thing to do on our end, right? For me to deal with that as the real estate professional, to deal with someone who's super excited, they value your opinion, they value what we bring to the table. I think that's kind of the name of the game, and that's what really brings me to this community and says, hey, let's bring some really good people in that can help bring a different aspect to this and provide a service in their native language and whatever language they speak so they can understand it. Some of the times what happens to me is there's that barrier. There's still that language barrier. Even though English is understood and we speak it, sometimes there's comprehension issues that aren't there. And that can turn, I mean, I just had a deal recently where I had a gentleman, he spoke somewhat English. It was like very broken. And we really tried to keep it together. And the deal fell apart, in my opinion, was the communication barrier. I tried to explain the same thing probably 15 times, and it just didn't resonate. And honestly, he backed out, and I felt like it was better because for him, if he didn't understand it, he's gonna have to back out. You have to move on, we have to find something else. So at the end of the day, I think there's also a huge factor of trust when you can trust someone who speaks the same language, when you can trust someone who's in the same culture, who understands it. And I wanna bring that to the table, and I think that's an important aspect.
Absolutely.
One of the things that I see as a huge hole is I see a lot of Hispanic agents and lenders really not act totally ethical on some of these transactions when I'm on the other end. Like sometimes there's situations where I almost cringe when I hear what they're saying to their client, or when when I see rates or when I see different things, it's like you're really not taking care of them, and they just don't know. You're really taking advantage. They don't know any better, and you're taking advantage of a situation that's not cool. Like that's not a good situation to take advantage of. So for me, that's one of the big voids, is not only that educational gap, but that ability for someone to manipulate the system and take advantage of a consumer. And I just want to see that come to an end.
Absolutely.
And I see that daily.
Absolutely.
Every single day. I see it a lot on the multis, a ton of times on the multis. Like some of these offers I get in, I'm like, these poor folks have no chance to make this work. There's no way in hell they're going to actually make this property make sense for them in the long run.
Yeah, it's unsustainable. It's
is.
unsustainable in many ways, and you are absolutely right. There are a lot of ethic issues that arise, and I think that whenever you're in a position of power and in a position where someone depends on you and is counting on your guidance, it's very easy to do that because you selfishly can very easily think about commission versus the relationship.
Right.
And I think that that's the approach that Jeff and I really, kind of champion ourselves in trying to follow or doing the best we can to follow that, is that it's about the relationship. Because, a transaction can happen today, it's done, that's it, and nothing come forward after that. But part of the reason that I know that for myself, coming to this new market 3 years ago, that I have been able to see the momentum in my business that I have is because I focus more on the relationship and not so much on the commission. It's kind of like you focus on the relationship, you do a good job, you do the best you can, and people see that. Because 100%. When the dust settles and people go home to their house, they remember what happened there, and they take that with them. And when that is a good feeling and a good experience, the amount of loyalty and the amount of referrals that come after that is amazing, because there's so much loyalty that you get with a Hispanic consumer.
They become walking billboards.
Oh, totally.
At the end of the day, that's how I built my business. In the beginning, you really just cater the heck out of your client. Right. Where you have a lot of capacity, right? So when you start out, you have a ton of capacity. You have a lot of time, you have a lot of effort and a lot of energy to put into that one transaction. Right. You can strangle that deal, right? You can really, really manifest that into 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more transactions down the road. Absolutely. And at the end of the day, the people that chase the money versus the people that try to do the right thing, those are the ones that they're out of the business relatively quick. The longevity comes from the ability to provide a really good service and the ability to really be there for that client. And at the end of the day, if the deal doesn't work, it doesn't work. Move on. Move on to something else.
Another big piece, too, that we're bringing to the table is the legal side of it. That's another area, missed opportunities, I would say, because I had Spanish clients will go to the closing and they don't understand really what's going on there, right? So they're sort of hearing it, summarizing, right, and they're just signing. So sometimes I catch myself kind of like translating a little bit, right? Yeah. So now we're going to have a Spanish attorney now that's going to be able now to translate and communicate in their language all the legal aspect of the whole transaction and what they're signing. So I think that was a big thing that we brought to the table as well. As a group, as a team, so. I see that all the time. I'll be at a closing, and it's a Spanish buyer, Spanish agent, and an attorney who doesn't speak Spanish. And the buyer is just staring at the agent. He has no idea, or she has no idea what they're signing. And granted, most buyers don't know what they're signing. Even if they speak fluent English, they have no idea. But at least if you can catch some of the buzzwords, and you can catch the gist of what is going on, it makes that client feel so much more comfortable. Like, these people are signing, they have zero clue what they're signing. No clue. Basically, at the end of the day, they're just hoping to get the keys and move on.
That's it.
And I think going forward, I'm going to give my kind of outlook. I think there's going to be a huge, unfortunately, downturn in the market in the next 18 to 24 months from a lot of these deals that were done where these folks really can't afford. They're in forbearance now, or they're kind of just barely scraping by right now. But when the dust settles here, I think it's important that you and I really focus on helping people how to navigate through that. They may, I think you're gonna see a lot of short sales, quite frankly. I think a lot of these multis in the Rhode Island area sold way too high. I think they're still selling way too high. And some of these buyers that can't sustain the mortgage, if the tenants don't pay, will result in a lot of short sales. And that's going to be a situation where we have to team up and understand how to help these folks out. And on the finance side, if unfortunately they do a short sale, we save them from a foreclosure so they become a viable buyer again, in a 2 to 3 year period versus that 7 year period.
Correct.
So I think the beauty of real estate is that things always will change and the market will always evolve. It's how do we stay in front of them with our new team and our new group and our new communication level in front of them so that they feel like they're getting a service that can help either get them out of a bad position or move them forward into a good position.
Right, absolutely.
So with me, I'm really excited, guys. We're going to be having an office right on Pocasset, right in Providence. So for those that don't know, Pocasset Ave, Silver Lake part of Providence, right? The Silver Lake portion, huge Spanish community over there.
Yes.
I think we'll see a lot of walk-ins. We'll have people there from 9 to 5 every day. Hopefully get a lot of folks in there. We can do some home education stuff. And I'm excited about the opportunity to educate, to build credibility and validity of our brand in this marketplace.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Anything you guys have to add?
No, I mean.
No, I think we have a great opportunity in front of us. From a very high level perspective, one of the things that is blatant out there when you look at the data from the National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals is that the Hispanic community is over-indexing every other community in growth when it comes to first-time home buyers and purchasing real estate. So when you look at an emerging market from a very high level and a national level, I mean, this is the emerging market for our industry. And when you're looking for growth, when you're looking for capitalizing on the next wave, well, the wave is here.
Correct.
And that's the Hispanic community.
Yeah, I think that's great. And guys, with that, we conclude another episode of All Things Real Estate. I would love to thank my friends here today. They've done a fantastic job. And I was really interested that we brought a whole new different twist to kind of what we've been doing on the show. And I'm excited to look forward to everything we've got going on.
Great.
All right,
And
thank
it's
you
a
for
wrap.
having us.
You're welcome.